Have you ever stood in a place so silent that you could hear your own heartbeat echoing back at you and wondered if it was really your heartbeat at all? What if the walls around you still held the last breaths of those who suffered there, waiting for someone new to listen? What if, by simply reading these words, you've already let something notice you're here? Chapter 1. The Abandoned Children's Hospital, Morgue Whispers. Eli tightened the strap of his backpack and stared up at the hulking silhouette of St. Mary's Children's Hospital, its broken windows black against the bruised evening sky. The building sat alone on the hill like a forgotten gravestone, far enough from town that no one heard screams anymore. Tara clicked her recorder on, her breath fogging in the cold, while Jonas swept his flashlight across the chain-link fence, already peeled back by previous explorers. They called themselves the Dust Chasers, three friends running a small paranormal podcast that barely paid for gas, but tonight felt different, heavier, as though the hill itself resented their arrival. They slipped through the gap in the fence and crossed the cracked courtyard where weeds pushed through concrete like desperate fingers. The main doors hung open, moaning softly in the wind. Inside, the lobby swallowed their light whole. Thick dust floated in slow motion, catching the beams like ash from an unseen fire. Scattered toys lay frozen in mid-play, a red fire truck tipped on its side, dolls with cracked porcelain faces staring at the ceiling, a single teddy bear missing one button eye sitting upright as if waiting for someone to come back. Eli knelt and brushed dust from the bear's fur, feeling an unexpected twist in his chest. He had explored dozens of abandoned places, but never one built entirely for children who never left. Tara's voice stayed low and steady as she narrated for the recording. We're inside St. Mary's, closed since 1987 after funding cuts and unexplained staff resignations. Locals say lights still flick on at night, and drivers on the old road report hearing laughter from the hill. Her words sounded brave, but her free hand trembled slightly. Jonas moved ahead, boots crunching over broken glass and fallen ceiling tiles, leading them toward the east wing where the patient rooms waited. The corridors stretched longer than they should, paint peeling in long curls like skin. Small beds lined both walls, metal frames rusted, mattresses sagging under the weight of time. Faded rainbow decals clung to the walls, cheerful animals now distorted by water damage and mold. Tara panned her camera slowly, capturing every detail for their listeners. Jonas pushed open a door to what looked like a nurse's station, papers scattered across the counter as if someone had left in a hurry decades ago. Eli followed, drawn to a filing cabinet still standing with drawers half open. Inside the top drawer lay stacks of patient files, surprisingly intact, folders yellowed but readable. He pulled one out at random, flipping through pages of handwritten notes, vital signs, medication charts. The name at the top read Emily Carter, admitted 1985, discharged never. A thick red line crossed through her name, the ink so dark it looked fresh. Eli frowned and grabbed another file. Same strike through the name, then another. Every single file had the child's name violently crossed out in crimson that gleamed wet under his flashlight. His stomach tightened. No way that ink was 38 years old. "Tara, come look at this," he called softly. She stepped closer, recorder aimed at the open drawer. Jonas joined them, shining extra light. They flipped through more folders, dozens of them, every name obliterated by the same blood-red mark. Tara whispered into her mic, describing the discovery, but her voice cracked on the word blood. Jonas reached for his phone to take photos, but the screen flickered, battery dropping from 80% to 20 in seconds. He He cursed under his breath and shoved it back in his pocket. A faint giggle drifted down the hallway, high and childlike, gone before they could pinpoint direction. All three froze. Tara checked her recorder, the waveform flat, no sound captured. Eli's skin prickled. They had all heard it. Jonas forced a laugh. Probably wind through broken windows, right? No one answered. They moved on, deeper into the ward, passing playrooms where board games lay mid-turn, pieces scattered as if tiny hands had just abandoned them. In one room, they found a circle of small chairs arranged perfectly, crayons still lined up by color on a low table, paper covered in childish drawings of stick families holding hands under a red sun. Tara knelt to examine the drawings, her light lingering on one showing a tall figure with no face standing behind the children. Eli felt the air grow colder, his breath visible now. Jonas suggested heading downstairs to the basement levels, where rumors spoke of a morgue still containing forgotten remains. Tara hesitated, but nodded. Listeners loved morgue stories. The stairwell down smelled of damp stone and something metallic. Their footsteps echoed too loudly. Halfway down, Tara's recorder picked up faint static, then a soft voice beneath it, a child whispering words too muffled to understand. She held the device up, playing it back immediately. Nothing but empty hiss. Yet when recording live, the whisper returned, clearer this time, a little girl asking someone to play. Eli's heart hammered. Jonas gripped the railing tighter, knuckles white. At the bottom, a heavy metal door stood ajar, leading to the morgue corridor. Frost coated the walls despite the season outside being mild. Drawers lined one side, name tags rusted, some still bearing faded paper slips with children's names. Tara aimed her flashlight inside the nearest open drawer, empty except for dark stains on the metal. Jonas pulled another drawer, the screech deafening in the silence. Empty again. They worked their way down the row, finding nothing physical, yet the feeling of being watched grew unbearable. Eli paused at the last drawer, tag reading Patient Unknown, 1987. Something made him pull it open. Inside lay a single fresh teddy bear, identical to the one upstairs, one button eye missing, fur clean and soft as if placed there yesterday. He stumbled back. Tara's recorder crackled violently, then a chorus of children's voices flooded through the speaker, laughing, crying, calling names. Not their names, older names from the files upstairs. The voices overlapped, growing louder, until one voice cut through clear and close, a small boy whispering Eli through the static. Eli dropped his flashlight. The beam spun across the floor, landing on the teddy bear now sitting upright in the drawer, staring directly at him. Jonas grabbed Eli's arm, pulling him back toward the stairs. Tara's recorder kept playing the whispers even after she switched it off, battery dead yet sound continuing. They ran up the stairs, footsteps pounding, the children's laughter chasing them through the corridors. Back in the lobby, panting, they stopped only long enough to realize the front doors had swung shut some time while they were below. Jonas shoved against them, locked from inside. Tara's dead recorder suddenly blared again, the boy's voice crystal clear now. Eli, stay and play. We've been waiting. Eli's name echoed from every direction, not just the device, but the walls themselves, the toys, the dust in the air. The teddy bear from upstairs sat in the middle of the floor now, though none of them had carried it. Jonas kicked the doors harder. Glass rattled but held. Tara screamed as shadows moved in the corners, small shapes darting just beyond the flashlight beams. Eli backed away from the bear, heart racing, realizing the red ink in the files wasn't crossing out names, it was adding new ones. His own name began to burn in his mind, written somewhere in fresh crimson. The whispers grew excited, welcoming. They finally smashed through a side window and tumbled into the night, running down the hill without looking back. Behind them, lights flickered on floor by floor in the abandoned hospital, tiny silhouettes appearing at every window, watching them go. Their podcast episode never aired. The recording, recovered later, contained only one clear sentence repeated endlessly after they fled. "Eli will come back to play. We saved him a bed." Chapter 2. Missing in the Old School. Forgotten Secrets. Ravi gripped the bolt cutters tighter as he stared at the chained doors of Ridgewood Elementary, the school looming dark against the midnight sky like a beast finally ready to wake. Noor stood beside him, her phone flashlight trembling slightly in her hand, while Greta lingered a few steps back, arms crossed, eyes scanning the empty playground where rusted swings creaked in the breeze. 10 years had passed since they last played here as kids. 10 years since their friend Sammy vanished without a trace during a game of hide-and-seek in this very building. Now, with demolition crews scheduled to arrive in days, they had come back one final time, drawn by an urge none of them could explain. The chain snapped under the cutters, metal clinking to the ground. Ravi pushed the doors open slowly, the hinges screaming into the night. Inside, the air smelled of old chalk and damp wood, familiar yet wrong. Lockers lined the halls, doors hanging open, some still decorated with faded stickers and drawings from children long grown. Noor stepped in first, her boots echoing on the cracked linoleum. "It looks exactly the same," she whispered, voice patching. Greta followed, quieter than usual, her gaze fixed on the far end of the corridor where the mystery room waited, the one classroom always locked even when they were students. As kids, they had dared each other to peek through its frosted window, seeing only shadows and stacked chairs. Rumors swirled then, stories of a teacher who disappeared, of cries heard after hours, but no one ever entered. Sammy had been obsessed with that door, claiming he would unlock it one day and prove the stories false. He chose that room to hide in during their last game together. They searched everywhere else first, laughing, calling his name. When they finally broke the lock that night, the room was empty. Sammy was gone. Police found nothing. The case went cold. Life moved on. Until now. Greta led them down the hall, past their old homeroom, where desks sat in neat rows, covered in dust thick enough to write in. Finger marks marred some surfaces, small handprints that looked fresh. Ravi frowned, shining his light closer. The prints were too small for adults, too deliberate to be random. Noor snapped photos, her breath quickening. They reached the end of the corridor, the forbidden door standing slightly ajar, wood splintered around the old lock as if someone had forced it recently. Ravi's stomach twisted. They had broken in years ago, but the damage looked new. Pushing the door wider, they stepped inside. The room was smaller than memory suggested, walls covered in peeling educational posters, alphabet letters faded to ghosts. A single teacher's desk sat in the corner, papers scattered across it. Chairs were stacked neatly along one wall, but the floor held something that stopped them cold. Graffiti covered every surface, words scrawled in bright colors that gleamed wet under their lights. "Hide and seek forever. You can't leave. We're waiting." The letters looked freshly painted, dripping slightly, though the building had been sealed for decades. Noor reached out to touch one wall, her fingers coming away red. Not paint, something thicker. She wiped her hand on her jeans, face paling. Greta moved to the blackboard, where chalk words appeared as she watched, forming slowly as if an invisible hand wrote them. "Sammy found you. Your turn next." The chalk dust fell fresh to the ledge. Ravi backed towards the door, heart pounding. "This isn't possible," he muttered. The room felt colder than the rest of the school, breath visible in the air. They spread out, searching for any sign of how this happened. Under the teacher's desk, Greta found an old composition notebook, pages filled with childish handwriting listing names.
Their names, Ravi, Noor, Greta, written over and over, circled in red. Below them, Sammy's name, crossed out violently. New names appeared lower down the page, kids they didn't recognize, all crossed out except the last 3 blank spaces waiting. Noor flipped back through pages, finding entries dating back years, each disappearance in town loosely tied to someone who played here as a child. A soft giggle echoed from the hallway, light footsteps running past the door. They froze. Ravi called out Sammy's name, voice cracking. No answer, only more footsteps circling the room. Greta grabbed a chair and wedged it under the doorknob, hands shaking. The giggles grew closer, multiple voices now, children laughing as if in a game. Noor's phone buzzed suddenly, screen lighting with a message from an unknown number. Found you. Hide better. She showed the others, thumb swiping to see more texts arriving in real time. Noor next, then Greta, Ravi last. The lights in the hallway flickered on outside the door, fluorescent bulbs long dead somehow glowing weakly. Shadows moved under the gap, small feet shuffling. The doorknob rattled gently, testing the chair. Greta whispered they should leave, but Ravi refused, stepping toward the blackboard where new words formed. Come play with us, forever friends. He reached out, chalk dust cold under his fingers. The moment he touched it, the giggles stopped. Silence pressed in, heavier than before. Noor noticed the stacked chairs first. One stack had shifted, revealing a small trapdoor in the floor, wooden panel slightly raised. They had never seen it before. Ravi knelt and pried it open, revealing a narrow crawl space beneath, dusty but with fresh scuff marks leading into darkness. A child's shoe lay inside, small and new, not decayed. Greta's breath hitched. It looked like Sammy's, the one missing from his searches years ago. They shined lights down, seeing walls covered in more graffiti, handprints, names scratched deep. Something moved in the shadows below, quick and low. Noor dropped her phone in fright, screen cracking as it fell into the space. The lights spun, illuminating a figure for a split second, pale, small, face turned away. Then darkness swallowed it. The phone kept buzzing, messages flooding even from the floor. Don't look down. We see you. Join Sammy. The voices started again, not from the hallway now, but from beneath the floor, surrounding them, whispering their names in sing-song tones. Greta yanked Ravi back as the trapdoor slammed shut on its own, wood splintering. The chair under the knob flew across the room, door swinging wide. The hallway lights died in the hallway, plunging everything into black. Their flashlights flickered, beams weakening. Footsteps rushed in, circling fast, cold air brushing their skin like tiny hands grabbing. Noor screamed as something pulled her hair. Ravi swung his light wildly, catching glimpses of children standing just beyond reach, faces blurred, smiling. They bolted for the exit, running down the corridor, lockers slamming open and shut as they passed. The front doors they entered through now stood chained again, fresh links gleaming. Greta spotted a side window, high but reachable. Ravi boosted Noor first, glass shattering as she climbed. Greta followed, cutting her arm on jagged edges. Ravi last, turning back once to see the hallway filled with small shadows, standing still, watching. They tumbled into the playground, running across grass towards the fence. Behind them, every window in the school lit up at once, silhouettes of children filling each frame, waving slowly. Noor's cracked phone, left behind, kept sending messages to her cloud account later recovered. Final texts read, Greta bleeding, Ravi slow, Noor crying, good game, see you soon. Demolition began the next week. Workers found the mystery room empty, walls clean, no graffiti, no trapdoor. But 3 new names appeared scratched faintly into the foundation before concrete poured over it. Ravi, Noor, Greta. The school was gone, but sometimes, on quiet nights, Kids from town report hearing laughter from the empty lot and a voice calling them to play one last game of hide and seek.
Chapter 3. West Wing Whispers. Hospital Night Shift. Lana clipped her badge to the scrub top and pushed through the double doors into the West Wing at exactly 11 at night, the hour when the hospital grew quiet enough to hear its own secrets breathing. The overhead lights hummed low, casting long shadows down the empty corridor, lined with patient rooms that had been closed for renovation months ago. She had taken this shift after Nurse Carter quit without notice, leaving only a brief email saying she could no longer work nights in the West Wing. No one asked questions. Hospitals always needed staff, and Lana needed the extra pay. The wing smelled of bleach over something older, metallic, like pennies left in rain. Her sneakers made soft squeaks on the polished floor as she began her rounds, even though no patients were assigned here tonight. Protocol required hourly checks for security and maintenance issues. She carried a clipboard, a flashlight, and the master key card that opened every door. The air felt thicker than in the busy East Wing, heavier, as though the building pressed down harder on this side. Room 312 stood first on her list. She swiped the card, pushed the door open, and swept her light across the space. The bed was neatly made, corners tucked tight, no wrinkles, no sign anyone had ever lain there. Yet the pillow bore a faint head-shaped indentation, fresh enough that the fabric had not sprung back. Lana frowned and stepped closer. The sheets smelled faintly of antiseptic and skin. She smoothed the pillow with her palm. The dent remained. Shaking her head, she moved on. In 314, the bed was unmade, sheets twisted as if someone had just risen. She stripped it quickly, remaking corners sharp. No patient charts existed for these rooms, no admissions logged. She told herself vagrants sometimes slipped in through side entrances, but security cameras showed nothing. By 316, the pattern repeated. Bed disturbed, pillow indented, faint warmth lingering in the mattress. Her skin prickled. She radioed the front desk. "Any unauthorized entries tonight?" Static answered, then a distant voice confirming all clear. She clicked off, uneasy. At the nurse's station, midway down the hall, she logged her checks, the computer screen flickering once before steadying. The paging system crackled overhead, a soft, automated voice calling a name she did not recognize. Dr. Harlan to West Wing, room 318. No Dr. Harlan worked here anymore. He had retired 20 years earlier. Lana muted the system from the panel, but 5 minutes later it spoke again. Same calm tone, same name, same room. She ignored it and continued her loop. Room 318 waited at the far end, corner unit, windows facing the dark parking lot. She swiped in. The bed here looked recently slept in, sheets pulled back, blanket folded at the foot. A water cup sat on the bedside table, half full, condensation fresh on the plastic. Lana picked it up. The water was cold. Lip marks smudged the rim, faint but clear. She set it down carefully, pulse quickening. Turning to leave, she caught movement in the mirror over the sink. A figure stood behind her in the reflection, tall, indistinct, wearing a patient gown. She spun around. The room was empty. Her breath fogged in front of her. The temperature had dropped sharply. She backed toward the door, flashlight beam shaking. In the mirror, the figure remained, head tilted, watching. But it cast no reflection on the polished floor, no shadow under the lights. Lana fled the room, pulling the door shut hard. The lock clicked behind her. She leaned against the wall, heart racing, telling herself it was exhaustion, tricks of tired eyes. The paging system spoke once more, louder now, the voice no longer automated but human, soft and weary. Nurse Lana to room 318. Patient needs assistance. Her name, clear as her own voice. She froze in the corridor. No one else worked this wing tonight. The call had come from inside the system, but the microphone at the station was off. She radioed security again, requesting backup. Static only. Determined not to let fear win, she returned to 318, swiping the card with steady hands. The room looked untouched now, bed made, cup gone, yet the mirror showed the figure closer, almost touching her reflected shoulder. Lana refused to look directly at it. She checked the bathroom, the closet, under the bed. Nothing. As she straightened, the overhead light flickered, then steadied. A patient chart lay on the bedside table, thin folder she had not noticed before. She opened it. The name read Patient Unknown, admitted indefinitely, condition terminal. Notes described pain management, final arrangements, no family listed. The last entry, dated tonight, read New nurse assigned, observant, will approach carefully. Lana's hand trembled. The handwriting looked like her own. She dropped the chart. Pages scattered across the floor, each showing the same entry repeated in different scripts, some old and faded, some fresh. Cold fingers brushed the back of her neck. She whirled, flashlight cutting through empty air. The mirror now showed two figures, the tall one and a smaller shape beside it, child-sized, holding the tall one's hand. Neither cast reflections beyond the glass. Lana backed out slowly, pulling the door closed. The lock refused to engage. She left it open and hurried down the corridor, checking remaining rooms faster, finding more signs. Footprints in dust that began midway across floors, handprints on windows from inside, breaths fogging glass that cleared into words. Help us, still here.
At the station, the computer screen displayed a new patient census for the West Wing only. 12 names listed, all marked deceased years ago, yet status read active, awaiting discharge. Her own name appeared at the bottom, status pending. She slammed the monitor off. The paging system activated again, multiple voices overlapping now. Patients calling for nurses long gone, children asking for mothers, someone crying softly in pain. The sounds came not from speakers, but from the rooms themselves, doors creaking open one by one down the hall. Lana ran toward the double doors leading out of the wing. They refused to open, keycard denied, red light blinking. She pounded on them, shouting for help. Behind her, footsteps approached, slow and shuffling, many sets, some dragging, some light and quick. She turned. The corridor filled with shapes barely visible under the humming lights, patients in gowns, faces pale, eyes fixed on her. They did not walk through walls but moved as if the air parted for them. The closest reached out, fingers translucent. The doors buzzed suddenly and swung open. Security officers stood there, concerned. "You okay? You radioed for backup 20 minutes ago." Lana stumbled through, gasping thanks, begging them to seal the wing. They checked the corridor together. Empty. Beds made. No charts, no footprints. Cameras showed only her entering and leaving rooms alone. They escorted her to the break room, suggesting she clock out early. Lana never returned to night shift. The hospital reassigned the West Wing checks to days only, but nurses on nearby floors still hear the paging system at night, calling old names, sometimes new ones. Former patients swear they see a nurse in the reflections of West Wing windows, standing watch, waiting for relief that never arrives. And on quiet nights, room 318's bed is found unmade each morning, pillow indented, a fresh cup of water waiting on the table.